Hi, I wanted to run through a decoding and pick of the key box on this MULTACC Corporation real estate lockbox. I have linked a whole bunch of videos and teardowns of people who go more into the internals, construction, and operation of this lock, which you should totally check out. It's completely worth it, and I won't go into that so much. What I will say is that this top shackle comes in and out and is controlled by a basic combination lock right here. So the interesting thing on this lockbox happens with the key box. In order to open the key box, you need both a key, which they call a programmer. You need both a key, and when you insert that key, you need a code that is unique to the bitting on that key. So a key has a unique bitting, and that also sets a unique code that then allows you to open the key box. So if you have a key but no code, you're out of luck. If you have a code but no key, you're also out of luck. And if you have a key and the wrong code, still out of luck. So it is a really fascinating bit of technology, and I love it so much. And I want to go over the instructions here real quick. So it is pretty much what we were saying earlier. We set the rings with the ID number, so we dial in the combination. Then we insert the programmer, insert that long key, and that has a track carved into it which interfaces with sliders on the inside of this mechanism. Then we turn that programmer key a little bit and push it in farther. When we do that, that will pop the key tray out somewhat, and when we pull that open further, there will be a very, very loud click, and then it will pop the programmer key back at us, and then we can go about our day and close the lockbox once this is done. I wanted to cover the central locking mechanism to these key boxes, and what that is has to do with the interaction between what I'm calling the core here with its captive sliders and the code wheels with these cuts that have been radially made on the inside. So the code wheel will allow the slider to pass through when the slider is raised to a specific height and the code wheel is dialed to that specific direction. This allows them to slide past each other, and that's what allows you to push in that programmer key and ultimately open the lock here. So the wheels themselves have false gates down in here. So they have false gates, and as well, if you can see right here, kind of on the edge, that little bit in shadow. So there are serrations made on the edges of the gates, basically corresponding with serrations that are made in the very edge. I do not have focus set up. Serrations made in the very edge of these sliders such that you can't bully your way into an open. You do need to be within the tolerances of the sliders and the tolerances of the wheels, in order to get an open. Going to try a decoding and a pick of one that I have not decoded or picked yet. So what we're starting out with here to go through the tools, this is a bit of a bicycle spoke. This is that same bit of a bicycle spoke cut down, which will act as a flat bitting for a key. This is a trimmed down hex wrench, which is used to scrape the sliders in case they stick and basically just flatten them into the position we want. And then the key to this is our turning and pushing tool. This is a trimmed down actuator. I believe it started life as something kind of like this, but a trimmed down actuator with slots cut in it so it can turn, and then vice grips because the spring in this is really strong, super strong. Okay, so let's give this a shot. First thing we're going to want to do is put this in a vertical position. You can hear maybe some of those sliders going, but we're going to use this tool to grab them all and push them into the lowest position. Then we're going to use our pushing and turning tool to feel for the false gates in the bottom position, and these are unique to each code wheel, each type of code wheel. So that allows us to identify the type of code wheel. So we've stuck this in, we've turned it, and we're going to push. And I've typically found it binds right to left. Not a guarantee, but that's been the case so far. So there is a good false gate. That one, not so much. So 4 is a good false gate, and you'll see me simplifying some possibilities here based on having done this before, but I'm going to mark down our false gates, and then above them I'm going to write what kind of wheel we found it to be. Let me adjust camera settings real quick. There we go, that's a little better. Okay, so then keeping tension on, we're then going for, it's not a 3, 4 is a false gate. Another possibility, so 6 feels like a false gate on that. So 3 is a possible false gate. Oops. And I got to keep this turned while I'm pushing, otherwise it is all in vain. So 3 kind of feels like it, but not totally. Oh, 7 feels much more false gatey. So 3 is possibly a false gate. Nope, 4 feels really tight. So another false gate on this was 5, is that right? And if I get stuck on one where I can't really tell what's going on, oh, that feels like 3 is a false gate. I'm going back and revisiting the false gates on this and choosing a different one in the hopes that that will allow this to go deeper and feel more about what's going on. So 3 is a possible false gate. Come on. All right, turn, push. Oh, that feels extremely tight. Yeah, I don't think so. 5 is not. 6 is possible. It's very difficult to tell on that. Ow. This spring is hella strong. Like, it does not want you to be doing this. Okay, so 6 has a lot of play on that. 4 did not. Really? Yeah, 6 has a lot of play on that. Okay, so what I'm going to try to write down here is that we had, oops, can I turn back? I need my tool back. Okay. So this had 6 only as a false gate. This one had 3. This one had 5 and 7. This one had 4 and 6. And these are familiar off the cuff to me because I've been doing decoding for these, but I will throw on the lookup table here just to show you as we go. So then we have 6, just 6 corresponds to F. 3 is a possibility for H. 5 and 7 is E. 4 and 6 is B. And then just 4 is G. So these should be the code wheels. Now this bicycle spoke is going to act as a flat-bitted key cut to depths number 6, which is the second lowest depth that there is. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to look up, for wheel F, what number do we put it on that matches bitting 6. So for F, that is number 3. For H, number 6 is number 4. For E and B, it is 2. And then for G, that last one, bitting 6 is all the way at 7. Okay, so we're going to insert the key. So we're going to flip this upside down again. We're going to use hex wrench to move the sliders down to make sure that they're all out of the way for this key. Scraping debris out of the lock here, that's fun. Okay, going to come about halfway up and load the key in its downward slot. I'm going to push that in. That is too deep. Don't know what happened. And it should go in deep, but not extremely deep. So if you're running into that, something is going wrong. Okay. Make sure I got all the sliders down here again. So one of them could be directing this up. Another possibility is to load this right underneath all the sliders. There we go. Rotate as such. That has now fallen to the bottom. Now we use this to grab all the sliders and move them down from the top in case they stuck there. I believe that should leave all the sliders in a flat place. Now we're just going to insert our turning tool, basically. We need to insert, turn as much as we can, push. There we go. Heck yes. And if it does not want to go, do not force it, because it is possible to break something. And I will show that more in detail later. But so if we want our turning tool back, what we need to do is pull this all the way out. You saw that kind of kick the turning tool back. We can rotate this back and then pull this out, and then we can slide this thing out. No prize, no present, but still fun. Thinking about the decoding process for these locks. So each code wheel in these is labeled with a letter corresponding to the way gates and false gates are cut in that wheel. We have only 5 known wheels that have been seen in the wild, B, E, F, G, and H, and it's possible that 5 is it, although interestingly, wheels E and F and G and H, which I'm just tapping the wheels randomly here, but E and F and G and H are mirror counterparts. So we can imagine what wheel A might look like, which is likely the mirrored counterpart of wheel B, even if we haven't seen it in the wild. Essential to the idea of decoding for us is that when we map out the gate positions and the false gate positions for each wheel, they are distinct. So each code wheel has a distinct false gate pattern, which we can detect. And this is the kind of thing that gets us thinking about, like, okay, let's start by decoding this by finding out what type of wheel each thing is. And the way is we would push in really hard with something, and then, feel for false gates, and then feel where those gates are and map it out. One of the problems that we run into immediately is that these have a very strong spring, and it requires a lot of force to push this in to try to map for false gates. Another problem that we run into as well is if we see the instructions here, it talks about turning the programmer slightly and then pushing in farther. This turns out to be a major issue for us because what is happening is that these sliders and these gates aren't actually radially aligned until, excuse the doggy in the background there, these aren't actually radially aligned until you turn that core. So instead of being in like this position or this position or this position at rest, they will be somewhere kind of halfway. And it's the turning the core that actually puts these in alignment with each other. So we need to somehow both turn the core and push in order to really successfully map out the false gates and identify wheels. When we do that, though, if we can think about doing that, so we would turn and push with some kind of tool. We would feel for the binding wheels, and then that would allow us to put these in false gates, map out what types each wheel is, and then we can refer to a lookup table to establish what the code should be given a key. And this relies on data from SgrA, this relies on data from Gordon on the key picking forums, that type of thing. Now we have come to the problem of needing a key. And remember what I said earlier, that each key has a code, and this includes keys with completely flat biddings. And I'm sure you can see where that is going. And the answer is that I have a bicycle spoke here that's about 75 thousandths thick, and it's rounded and that type of thing, but it doesn't slide around in the keyway. And that just so happens to correspond with bidding number 6, which is the second lowest bidding that is possible. So this acts as a key with bidding all 6s. This is cut to size 1 13/16 if you're trying to play along at home. And the way that we have normally used this is one of the tools is a shave down hex wrench, because what's happening inside the lock, let me try to get closer and get some focus here. What's happening kind of inside the lock is we would have the box in an upright position, we would turn it upside down, we would use this hex wrench to grab all the slider nubs and pull them down if they were sticking, and then we come back about halfway to horizontal position, we insert our quote-unquote key, and then use a piece of something to push it to its depth. Let me see if I've done that correctly. I think so. And then once it's at its depth, you can see it's holding these sliders up. Need to get used to looking through the camera here. But that's holding the sliders up in its position. We return fully vertical, and then we would take this shave down hex wrench again to grab the nubs, push them all flush against in case anything was sticking. One thing to note on this particular one, you may be able to see one of these sliders, or in fact a couple, but in particular this last one looks like it's sticking out more. There appear to be some locks with countermeasures against presumably this type of attack, where one of the sliders is distinctly different, so it will sit one position higher or lower than the others, even given a flat key. It's not clear to me whether that's intentional or not, but that does appear to be a thing, and I've not opened every lockbox that I've gotten my hands on, just about 70% of them. So, well, let's open the core here to just demonstrate where that key is, where the bicycle spoke is sitting when it's acting as a key. Let me see if I can get that open without dropping it. Goodness. Okay. So you can see down at the very end here, down at this very end, we have the stop point, which is where this is for the bottom. And then we have that this comes just barely past where that nub for that first slider is. So that's about 1 3/16, I think I said. 1 13/16, excuse me. Length is pretty good for that. And then also just to show the turning tool. So this turning tool is made from a shave down deadbolt actuator. And you can see that we've cut the angled cuts in the side, similar to how the keys look, in order to have the ability to turn. And the way that this goes in, we need to make sure that this cutout, you can see, does not impact the nub when we go in, because all the pushing force is actually coming from this tiny, everything is slowing down. It's coming from this tiny little bit right here. And that is because, to set half the core down, that is because it is pressing up against this on the inside. So this goes in and is sitting like this. And the turning ability also comes not so much from, I guess, the shank of it. It comes from this little nub up here. Because when that is pressed in flush, I'm going to dump all the things out. When that is pressed in flush there, there is a little channel. Basically, you end up with a little channel along the top that top nub rides in, and you end up with a little channel. Oops, that is... Oh, I put this together backward. Yeah. You end up with a little channel on top and a little channel on the side. Oh, goodness. I'm glad I put this after the decoding. So only if you're here, you're probably kind of interested in this, which is good. There we go. So this is how it sits in the actual thing. So you can see that this, deep in there, that plate is what we're actually pushing against, that ridge. And you can see that right here along the top is that little channel that allows that top nub to turn it. So when we go in here and we push, or we turn and push, the thing to note is that this, where we're making contact for the pushing force, is past the point at which the first nub exists. So if you don't have something shaved down to accommodate that nub wherever you put it, whether it's on bottom or on top, if you don't have it shaved down when you apply pushing force, you will push on that nub and you will break it, which unfortunately I have done once. So what we have here though is that Put all together, what we have is a tool that allows us to both turn and then push the core without applying force on the nubs on the inside. And then once we do that, we feel for the binding wheels, we map those out. And once we have those mapped, we can take our flat bitted key and say, okay, for a key that is all 6 cuts, what is the code for that key? Then we dial in that code, which on these boxes happens to be the 34227. So once we've dialed in that code, then we can go ahead and insert the key, go through that whole process, turn, push, and the box should pop open. So thank you for watching all this. If you have any questions, please do leave them in the comments below, because I am very curious what y'all make of this, and I'm hoping that other people have success opening their lockboxes. Thanks so much for watching.